Okay, our group is going to showcase LA Public Library's trends impacting public libraries. Um, and I'm going to begin with current trends. My name is Sarah Kubaka-Rozier, and I'm going to be talking about firstly maker spaces. So there are four main maker spaces within the LA Public Library system: the Octavia Lab, Koreatown Media Lab, DIY Memory Lab, and the Mobile Memory Lab. The short video is coverage from LA this week, and it's covering the most notable makerspace, the Octavia Lab.
Imagine walking into a room with all proud as an award-winning author in a male domain.
Okay, so as the video covered, it's really important that libraries are offering these type of technologies. It really helps to bridge that gap for the digital inequities. And it gives people opportunity to cultivate lifelong learning and be creative. You can go to the next slide. Okay, staying with the Octavia Lab, it was named after award-winning sci-fi author Octavia Butler. So anybody with a LAPL card can access these maker spaces for free and have unlimited access to state-of-the-art design, fabrication, preservation, photographic, and storytelling technologies. Kind of one of their hallmark things that the Octavia Lab is the staff collaborated with LA Clean Tech Incubator to make 126,000 face shields for local area hospitals during the pandemic. This is another good example of libraries maintaining their relevance and ingenuity, but fulfilling a need in the Okay, some of the additional technologies that the Octavia Lab offer are a photo studio, a mill, an embroidery machine, a digital illustration station, sound recording booth, laser cutter, 3D printing, poster printer, vinyl cover cutter. The list could be twice as long. There's a lot of good technologies in maker spaces. Moving on to the Koreatown Media Lab. This is a maker space and business center located at the Pio Pico Koreatown Library. And this offers a business center and professional computer programs to assist business people, entrepreneurs. They offer a lot of great meeting spaces like a Zoom room. They have a virtual reality headset, large format printers to print posters for your businesses, a 3D printer, green screen, lots of craft classes. This bottom image is from their Instagram page, and it just highlights the Mother's Day cricket card class. So it's an opportunity for patrons to come and learn how to use a cricket and make something neat for Mother's Day. Moving on to the DIY Memory Lab and the Mobile Memory Lab. It was touched on in the first video that this is for patrons to come in and take their personal collection and digitize it so they can do reel-to-reel, Super 8 photos, slides, negatives, scan documents, CDs, VHS. This is for personal archiving. And the Mobile Memory Lab is LAPL staff will help scan and digitize items. And these go into the Digital Public Library of America portal. And so what they'll do is they'll conduct oral history interviews, collecting historical stories of LA residents and communities. And these items get put into the TESSA portal. And the TESSA portal is named after the sixth city librarian of LA, and it provides instant access to rare and historical collections. They have things that are rare and unique of LA historical relevance, features hundreds of thousands of photos. And it really reflects the goal of the library, digitizing their collection for farther reach, so more people can see. And it just promotes cultural understanding. This bottom picture is taken from the collection Shades of LA, a search for visual ethnic history. And this project started in 1991 from the photo friends of the LA Public Library. And it was a 6-year project, and it involved copying thousands of photos of LA families, and it broadened their collection to represent more ethnicities within the city. So these technologies speak to a larger trend, which is libraries as cultural centers. So the next trend is the beyond book trend. So libraries have evolved greatly in the last several decades and are providing more than just books. A good example of this are the ukulele rentals at the Cypress Park branch. The local school district was cutting the music program, and so the library saw the need to fill that gap with more musical instruments. So they started their ukulele rental, and it's been wildly successful. Not only students and kiddos are checking them out, but adults, people of all ages. So it's an example of libraries filling that gap and that need. There are DIY science kits available at a lot of libraries, and they are science kits that you take home and you learn and explore in your own neighborhood. The Explore LA with Discover and Go is a program that by using your LAPL library card, you get free or low cost passes to places like the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County or Botanic Gardens. There's a lot of places that that'll work with. The California State Library Parts Pass is another partnership with the Partners Office and the California State Library. And again, you just need a LAPL public library card and you get free day passes to over 200 participating state parks. The last one I want to touch on is LA Made. And that is a cultural series featuring free music, dance, theater, conversations with local entertainers at libraries throughout the city. Some of the upcoming programs are Chinese calligraphy, Vietnamese spring roll making, classical guitar concert. So these types of things are just exposing library patrons to different cultures, which is an important tenet to public libraries. The next trend is social media. So the LA Public Library has a great social media presence. Their combined reach through Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok is over 200,000 followers. And this has been a trend that a lot of libraries are hopping on because it's a great way to engage and interact with your community. It's a free resource, it's free marketing. So in the world of budget cuts, this is just another resource that libraries can utilize. And a lot of these social media apps have analytic insights, so you can see how well programs are trending by likes, shares, comments. You can get into the comment section with patrons. It's good, place to get feedback and insight. And it's a great way to educate and promote collections and events in a dynamic way. And so this is an Instagram reel that I pulled from their Instagram page, and it's just a short little video highlighting their hiking backpack collection. Should be a link at the bottom. You might have to unmute when it first starts playing. Okay, the last trend I'm going to touch on is technology. So aside from the incredible maker spaces at LAPL, there are other technologies on offer. The Tech2Go computer bundle program offers patrons long-term checkouts of Wi-Fi and laptops for home use. This was created in another effort to bridge that digital equity gap for many Angelinos. And as new technologies come onto the market, it can expand or limit who has access. So this video just kind of touches over the Tech2Go computer bundle program. Okay. The e-media offerings at LAPL are quite extensive. They include ebooks, e-audio, movie, music, podcasts, language learning, educational sources. So these uh, apps and technologies are really important for people who can't physically get into the library and they can still access all the different resources that are provided. So it just expands the reach of the library. Book a Librarian is another service for patrons to schedule one-on-one time with librarians in person or virtually to learn how to research and use collections such as databases, searching online card catalogs. And if you find yourself needing more help, the cybernauts are trained computer aides and they can offer tech assistance, computer support, mobile device support. They can help you set up an email, operate your tablet, desktop, smartphone, use social media, and learn basic computer skills. So through all these trends, it's apparent that LAPL listens to their community and is a trusted resource. They offer a huge selection of innovative, state-of-the-art technology and digital library resources to foster lifelong learning and creativity for patrons of all ages. Their special collections serve as a cultural center for showcasing the rich and vibrant heritage of the Los Angeles area. Thank you.
My name is Lily Jacobs, and I'll be talking about community wants and needs. We're going to go over the Los Angeles Public Library's mission statement and how we can use asset-based community development to assess what the need is in the community and what resources are available to help with that need. This photo is of the South Hope Street entrance of the library. So first, let's talk about the mission statement. It is the Los Angeles Public Library provides free and easy access to information, ideas, books, and technology that enrich, educate, and empower every individual in our city's diverse communities. So using this analysis, we are going to assess whether it is meeting the goals of its mission and firstly, how community needs are being identified and tackled through library programs and partnerships with other initiatives. So asset-based community development is a very useful concept for many organizations, and public libraries have also been using this, and as well as asset mapping, which is pinpointing community assets and gathering data on specific needs. And this short video will describe it effectively. So using this service-based model, public libraries can really build communities up. One way that the public library has been assessing a need and using its resources to fix it is by the Public Library Funding Charter Amendment, or Measure L. So this was just a movement that restored cut library service hours, um, because the service hours that were cut were not inclusive of, all people, especially people that had to work or were not able to come to the library. Um, so this also helped the library to offer enhanced programs, collections, technology, and expand their digital presence. Um, the need was to increase library hours and increase them to 7 days a week instead of cutting them. Another need that has been identified in the community is homelessness and poverty. Unfortunately, in 2023, homelessness in Los Angeles rose 10% to 46,260 people. Los Angeles County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath stated that over the last 6 months, we have proven that our unified approach is connecting more people to housing and services. Now we must address the root causes of homelessness by investing in families, working to make housing more affordable, and most importantly, keep people in the places they already call home. So how the library is addressing this need is by placing, giving patrons the resources necessary on their library homepage. There's a homelessness resources tab, and this connects people not only with housing, but also with food and groceries, working cash aid services, just a plethora of information that people can then get connected to their community liaisons to help them. And since the library offers this information online, and if people come into the library, it is also easily accessible. This is a way that they can build communities up and ensure that they are helping individuals in need by giving them those access to those resources. Another important need in the community is health and wellness. There's been an increased emphasis on healthy living and health information and wellness practices, especially since 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic. The LAPL has increased programs relating to health and wellness, such as yoga classes or health seminars. And yes, this falls into holistic health, such as like meditation, wellness, nutrition. They also have links and informational packets on CalFresh and Health Matters partnerships. So this is another way in which they're partnering with community resources to help. And they do have information on COVID guidelines, promoting awareness of that. Another important way that the library is supporting the community is by providing outreach to people and using the library and the city resources to bring libraries and the library's books to communities that may not be able to come, as this video illustrates. So that shows how community members, library volunteers, and library staff were serving the community during the COVID pandemic and continue to conduct that outreach. The library's website states that the community outreach team supports the library's mission by bringing library services and resources to the community through direct engagement and collaborative partnerships. We prioritize outreach to undeserved communities and groups with barriers to access. Another important thing to note is that community members can request outreach, whether if someone in the community has a daycare or just thinks, hey, this area or this school would benefit from mobile library outreach. The library will organize to achieve that goal, such as the community bookshelf program, which brings library to children who may be in underserved areas. So that brings me to another need, which is adult and digital literacy. An increased emphasis has been placed on adult literacy classes and programs. This can be whether it's a learning such as their adult learner program in which people can sign up and be tutored by volunteers who are community members who volunteer to tutor people, whether it's in English or another subject. There's also digital learning and literacy for people who may not be familiar with that or who may need additional help with, for example, applying for jobs online or accessing email accounts. And these objectives are outlined in the strategic plan. And important to note is that 82% of Angelinas surveyed think it's important to offer a digital training center where people of all ages can learn to use new technologies. Since this is such a pressing need, and again, because many people are living under the poverty level, the library will benefit for communities by offering these digital trainings, which will only continue to be more important as time goes by with all the technological advances. Some objectives concerning digital literacy outlined in the strategic plan include the number of learners accessing online instruction increasing from 1,000 to 5,000, and these numbers are from 2014 to 2020. And also that 90% of people surveyed who attend library-sponsored citizen workshop will rate it as very good or excellent. And that also includes financial literacy, which is, again, a very important tool to learn, and that the library can help community members. The number of views on the library's financial literacy portal increasing from 5,000 to 25,000, and 90% of people attending health programs, and just general objectives of increasing library card holders. And these literacy programs can be a very great way to draw people to the library and give them the push that they need to better their own lives, which in turn will benefit the whole community. So those were the ways in which the Los Angeles Public Library is supporting their mission statement by offering programs and services that support the community's needs.
Okay, awesome. I am Mason Keefe, and I wrote a ton, so I will try to not say very much. But I am talking about the Los Angeles Public Library's use of vocabulary, primarily on their website. Obviously, I can't see anything internally, but that is also something we'll talk about. So, yep. Going right into it. So the general framework of this whole thing, the transforming our image, building our brand, the educational advantage, as a book and as an influential piece that we use in the class, it sort of gives us a framework for reshaping what a library is and how we talk about a library. So, the general idea is that people outside of the library world don't know or respect what libraries are, what they do, and that we need to reframe to a more educational mindset. Next slide. So generally, the idea is that instead of changing what the library is as a whole, that the library already offers educational programs and projects, just that things need to be reframed and vocabulary needs to change. So the VGROS piece gives us a lot of different vocabulary, things like children's classes instead of story time, using the term research instead of reference, like for a reference desk, using loan, borrowing, customer service instead of circulation desk, things that would make library categories more clear to someone who isn't a regular patron or someone that's in the know. In addition to that, the Garmer report, Libraries in the Exponential Age, also stresses that libraries need to be moving towards super connectivity, becoming America's civic square, and being an app library. So, adopting language that stresses those elements should be important. So, as far as LAPL goes, there are some areas in which they're making excellent progress, really great strides, I would even say. So, you can see I've taken a little chunk of the website, obviously, just to highlight how many digital things there are available. There are digital programs, there's music online, podcasts online, magazines online, online learning, literal programs you can sign up for on Zoom. So, as far as super connectivity and becoming an app library goes, LAPL is knocking it out of the park right now. And you can see that reflected pretty easily just on their home screen itself, and then obviously from perusing their website. As far as libraries in the information age goes, America's Civic Square seems to rate kind of lower as far as the website goes. I would say that that might be sort of a misnomer, only because the website is obviously going to favor digital items. It's not going to favor in-person communication as much. It's a website. So I would say that the LAPL is doing pretty great in that element as well. It's just that the website's not a really great place to showcase that. So, as far as stuff that is sort of partially changed or that kind of fits the Garmer report, kind of fits V. Gross's advice, I am seeing a lot of elements on the LAPL website that V. Gross tells us to sort of keep in the same category. For example, education according to that book, should be sort of over all events, all services, all programs. But if you look at just the very top of the website, you can see education and research is one tab, services and programs is another tab, events is another tab. So by the framework, all of those things would be compiled. I might even argue that LAPL isn't compiling them simply because they offer so many things that it might actually become more confusing to do so. But this is more something to consider. As far as LAPL goes, as an institution, obviously they haven't adopted every single thing in the Garner report, every single thing that Vigros said. Um, I would still argue that they're doing a good job overall and that many library professionals don't necessarily agree with these frameworks. It's very hard to change vocabulary, to change the way that we talk about things without a lot of internal buy in, as well as a lot of external buy in. So if you can only imagine the people that are frequenting these libraries might not be comfortable with the names of things changing, as well as the people that work in them. So changes can be useful, but not if they're unwanted. So it seems like LAPL's on the right track overall, and maybe nothing else needs to change. So great job for everybody. My references?
Alrighty, and then just to close us out, I'm Scott Schaefer, and I'm going to be talking about how the LAP regards equity and inclusion. And I'm going to be taking a closer look at some of the content from the Garmer report. So if I get the next slide, please. So regarding the DI efforts from the LAPL, to measure that, we're using the American Library Association's DEI scorecard. It evaluates libraries across 5 different categories and assigns each one a score from 0, insufficient, to 3, excellent. So starting with budget, they score a 1 on their budgeting. There's no dedicated funding for DEI initiatives in the budget. The funding for education and outreach, which is about $9 million, it mentions DEI, hiring, outreach, and training as possible uses, but does not specifically fund those projects. And though there is a lot of discretion on the part of the branch libraries to allocate funding that they receive from the broader organization for DEI initiatives, it would be helpful for the LAPL to enshrine that funding specifically in the budget rather than leaving it in this kind of vague no man's land of budgeting priorities. It makes it easier for it to get sidelined or make it seem like less of a priority for the branch libraries. Next slide, please. Next, so embeddedness evaluates the degree to which the LAPL has incorporated DEI into their strategic plan. And on that front, they scored about a 1.5, maybe a 2. In the 2015 to 2020 strategic plan, which is the only one that was publicly available, DI is incorporated into several of their goals, but is never addressed directly. It's mentioned as a priority in their sections on strengthening community connections and inculcating a love of lifelong learning for all patrons, but again, as part of a distinct separate goal rather than something to work on in and of itself. Similarly, for the library's training efforts, the LAPL does pretty well. They score a 2.5, maybe a 3. They do require annual training for all staff, and across both positions in the branch libraries and for administrative positions in the organization more generally. But similar trainings are also made available to the public. They hold workshops. They want very much try and get this information and make the information about how the public participates in diversity, equity, and inclusion in their own communities and at the library, and raise that public awareness. Next slide, please. So as far as the recruitment is concerned, this is one that is pretty difficult to get an understanding of from the outside. Again, the branch libraries have a lot of autonomy here. And so without being able to dive deeper into each individual library's practices, it's hard to paint an overall picture. What the main site does have available is enough to give the organization a solid 2 out of 3. The administration places pretty significant emphasis on hiring from within the communities that each library serves. And the LAPL has dedicated resources to creating alternate pathways to entry into the library system. I just wanted to highlight here one example of the diversity and inclusion apprenticeship, which each year takes about a dozen either graduating high school students, and basically places them inside one of the branch libraries. It lasts for the summer, and the goal is to bring in people who wouldn't necessarily otherwise have a direct line of access to the libraries, but who have a passion for it and want to serve their communities through the libraries. And the idea is just to give them a door in, build up interest, and create a sort of alternate pathway that isn't just the normal hiring process. Next slide, please. And then last section for the scorecard, and also the area where the library most excels is in their data collection practices. So the LAPL very closely monitors both user and community demographics, event attendance and impact, staffing needs, use of library services, and all of this is fed back into documents like the strategic plan, which then go back into informing how the library is organized going forward. On the DEI front especially, a lot of this data is fed through Janae Brown, who's the library's Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And her job is to aggregate this information, ensure that it is implemented in actual practice. She also serves as the Director of Emerging Technologies, which means that a lot of the DEI information is, as much as possible, embedded in the library's digital initiatives. Next slide, please. So just in brief summary, out of a possible score of 15, the LAPL scored about a 10, representing an average score of 2 or improved. The areas most in need of improvement are those that could benefit from the more like top-down implementation, budgeting and hiring. Because the LAPL gives a lot of autonomy to each of the branch libraries, which is great for many other purposes, but it would be good to see a higher degree of institutional buy-in with respect to DEI issues, with that buy-in being reflected in budgeting and strategic priorities. Next slide, please. So then just to sort of conclude here, I'm going to be taking a closer look as well as how the LAPL has organized itself, or reorganized itself, I should say, in response to some of the challenges that are touched on and described in the Garmer report. Now, we talked about the report a little bit earlier, and it's too much. It would be too much for the purpose of this presentation to go into detail on all of the points it makes. But I want to just focus on this idea of both libraries having to try to adapt to a more networked world, and also this idea of there being 3 key assets to a library: people, place, and platform. And we'll be looking at each of those briefly now. Next slide, please. So people just refers to the idea of the library as this kind of community hub. And this gets back to a little bit of what we were talking earlier about data collection. As individuals have become increasingly networked, what services they need have changed. And in order to figure out how that has changed, what people now need and what people would use if it was made available, you have to be able to collect that data. And the LAPL has done a very good job of navigating what those spaces are. Sarah talked about this quite a bit in terms of the kind of maker spaces, community spaces that the library is placing an emphasis on and putting front and center. Because they have 73 locations, this kind of monitoring needs to be done on both the citywide and local level to be effective. And on this, the library has done very well. A number of their specific projects, such as the remodeling of the Van Nuys branch in, I believe it was 2022, really highlighted this emphasis and has served as kind of a model for the library going forward. Next slide, please. So the idea of place, as outlined in the Garmer report, is all about creating spaces to meet the identified needs of their users. The size of the LAPL here is their greatest asset. They've been really able to effectively centralize and direct resources, which allow for the creation of numerous dedicated activity spaces. In addition to some of the spaces that are highlighted on the right side here, some libraries have been able to go above and beyond. And again, just to call back to Sarah's outline here, the Octavia Lab, the Memory Lab, and so on are all extremely effective tools, and a lot of them exist digitally, which is really important because for a thing that serves so many people, Digital resources are ones that can be developed with centralized resources and then shared amongst all the users of the library rather than having to require investing in a single physical space. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about platform. So rather than being entirely distinct, the idea of platform is really just the synthesis of in place. It looks to the library not just as a place where people can go to meet their information needs, but also as an institution that acts as the foundation of a healthy community. And here, the Garmer report emphasizes accessibility, flexibility, and breadth. In addition to offering specific services to meet specific needs, the library needs to be a place that people feel like that they can go to and be in. And here, the most basic element of the LAPL's platform is access. Being open, being local, being accessible. And so in that front, part of how the LAPL has addressed this issue with the scale of the community that they serve is by having a ton of branch libraries, really pushing their budgeting to try to keep the libraries open as much as possible. Because whatever other services, whatever other spaces they provide, if the library is not open, if there isn't staff, then they are not able to fulfill their purpose as community organizations. And looking at the distribution of the libraries, how they've improved over the last couple of years, especially while recovering from COVID, I think they have done a very effective job of, at the most basic level, creating access for the wider LAPL urban area. So just in brief here, closing us out, overall, I think the LAPL has done an excellent job of leveraging the resources that they have in order to meet the needs of their users. There's definitely places to improve and areas in which it would be great to see a little bit more like sort of synthesis between the broader library organization and the individual branch libraries. But the overall momentum of the organization is definitely towards positive change. And they've done a very good job of implementing the recommendations from things like the Garmer report or public feedback into